Sean? Gus?
Dennis?
No.
Freddie Prinze Jr. once seemed impossible to escape. His face defined an era of romantic comedies, his name guaranteed box office interest, and his presence embodied a version of Hollywood charm that felt effortless. Then, without warning, that presence faded. There was no public scandal, no dramatic implosion, no obvious reason for concern. He simply stepped away, leaving behind a question that still lingers. What happened when one of Hollywood's most reliable stars chose to disappear? Before continuing, Hollywood Spoiler Zone invites viewers to like this video and subscribe to the channel for documentary storytelling that examines the hidden realities behind fame and influence. Freddie Prinze Jr. emerged in the late 1990s as a defining figure of mainstream entertainment. With a combination of humor, confidence, and accessibility, he became a fixture of studio-backed romantic comedies and teen-oriented films. Titles like She's All That and I Know What You Did Last Summer were not just commercial successes. They shaped a cultural moment, and Prinze stood at its center. Studios viewed him as dependable, audiences embraced his persona, and his career trajectory appeared stable. What made his rise particularly notable was its contrast with his background. As the son of Freddie Prinze, a comedian whose life ended tragically, there was an awareness of legacy that followed him into the industry. That history rarely dominated headlines, but it informed how his success was perceived. He represented continuity, a second chance at a Hollywood story that had once ended abruptly. As the early 2000s progressed, Prinze continued working steadily. Yet beneath the surface, shifts were already underway. The romantic comedy genre that had elevated him began to lose prominence. Studio priorities changed, audience tastes evolved, and the industry's focus moved toward franchises and spectacle. For actors closely associated with a specific formula, that transition carried risk. At the same time, Prinze's relationship with Hollywood was becoming more complex. Interviews from that period suggested growing frustration with creative limitations and the repetition of roles that prioritized image over depth. The success that once offered security began to feel restrictive. Still, nothing indicated an imminent exit. When his on-screen appearances became less frequent, the assumption was temporary recalibration. Instead, it marked the beginning of a deliberate withdrawal. Not forced, not reactive, but chosen. This was the moment where public visibility ended and a quieter, less understood chapter began. As Freddie Prinze Jr. stepped away from the spotlight, the reasons behind his absence were not immediately clear. Hollywood tends to explain disappearance through failure or controversy, yet neither applied in his case. His reputation remained intact, his relationships professional, and his box office history solid. The lack of a clear narrative made his retreat more puzzling, and speculation quietly replaced certainty. Behind the scenes, Prinze's dissatisfaction with the industry had been growing for years. He spoke later about feeling constrained by a system that favored repetition over growth. Roles offered to him increasingly mirrored past successes, reinforcing an image rather than exploring new dimensions. For an actor seeking longevity and substance, that pattern felt limiting. The work was consistent, but the fulfillment was not. At the same time, his personal life was becoming a stabilizing force. Marriage and family shifted his priorities away from public validation and toward long-term balance. Unlike many actors whose private lives are shaped around career demands, Prinze made the opposite choice. He reduced his professional footprint to protect a sense of normalcy that Hollywood rarely accommodates. That decision, while quiet, carried weight. The industry itself was also undergoing structural change. Mid-budget romantic comedies, once a reliable cornerstone, were losing studio support. Franchises and serialized storytelling began to dominate production strategies. For actors identified strongly with a specific era or genre, opportunities narrowed unless they were willing to reinvent aggressively. Prinze showed little interest in that race. Rather than forcing a reinvention on screen, he redirected his creative energy elsewhere. Writing, producing, and voice work offered a different form of engagement, one less dependent on image and more aligned with process. These pursuits lacked the visibility of leading roles, but they provided agency. Hollywood noticed the absence, but did not resist it. Public narratives continued to frame his career as stalled. The reality was more deliberate. Prinze was not waiting to be rediscovered. He was choosing distance from an industry model that no longer matched his values. This middle period defined his disappearance not as decline, but as detachment. A step away from the cycle that had once propelled him forward. In the years that followed, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s absence from mainstream Hollywood gradually came to be understood on different terms. As conversations around burnout, creative autonomy, and work-life balance gained prominence, his earlier decisions appeared less anomalous and more intentional. What once seemed like a vanishing act began to resemble a controlled exit from an industry that had shifted away from what first made him successful. Prinze did not sever ties with entertainment entirely. Instead, he redefined his involvement. Voice acting, particularly in animation and video games, allowed him to remain creatively active without the scrutiny that accompanied on-camera roles. Writing and producing provided an additional layer of control, enabling him to shape projects rather than simply occupy them. These choices reflected a desire for sustainability over visibility. Hollywood, meanwhile, continued its evolution. The genre that had elevated Prinze was largely absorbed into nostalgia, revisited more often through reboots and references than through new material. In that landscape, his absence felt symbolic of a broader transition. An era had ended, and with it, the demand for the type of stardom he once embodied. When Prinze did return to public view, it was without fanfare or reinvention. He spoke openly about his dissatisfaction with the industry's culture and its resistance to change. His tone was not bitter, but measured. He acknowledged the opportunities he had been given while remaining critical of the structures that limited creative growth. That balance distinguished his story from more familiar narratives of resentment or regret. What remains significant is the clarity of his trajectory. Prinze did not disappear because he was pushed out. He stepped back because the system no longer offered what he valued. His career did not collapse under pressure. It shifted direction in response to it. For Hollywood's spoiler zone, his story illustrates a different kind of disappearance, one defined not by scandal or failure, but by choice. In an industry that equates relevance with constant exposure, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s retreat stands as a reminder that stepping away can be an act of preservation, not surrender.